I wasn't supposed to work the closing shift that night. Melissa had called in sick, so my manager asked if I could stay until midnight. I needed the money, so I agreed without much thought. Just another Tuesday at Wendy's on Parkview Drive. The night shift had its own rhythm. Different from the lunch rush with its hurried office workers and frantic mothers with children. The evening brought in teenagers, night shift workers grabbing dinner, and the occasional drunk looking for something greasy to soak up the alcohol. And then there were the regulars. That's how I first noticed him. He came in every Tuesday and Thursday at exactly 10:43 p.m. I started tracking the time after the third week. He'd order the same thing, a Dave's double, no pickles, large fries, and a chocolate frosty. He always paid in cash, always had exact change, and always sat at the same booth in the corner by the window, facing the door. He wasn't particularly memorable at first glance. Mid-40s, average height, thinning brown hair. He wore khakis and button-down shirts, sometimes blue, sometimes white, occasionally beige. Nothing about him stood out except his punctuality and routine. "Large fries are up," I called out, sliding them into the warming tray. My coworker Jake was working the register. "For the regular?" he asked. That's what we called him. Not very creative, but it stuck. "Yep. It's 10:41. He'll be here in 2 minutes." Jake glanced at the clock. "Weird how you know that." I shrugged. "You start to notice patterns when you work here long enough." As predicted, at 10:43, the door chimed. The regular walked in, head slightly bowed as always. He approached the counter with measured steps. "Welcome to Wendy's," Jake greeted him with customer service cheerfulness. "Dave's double, no pickles, large fries, and a chocolate frosty," the regular replied without looking at the menu. I'd already started preparing his order before he finished speaking. That night, something was different. As I placed his tray on the counter, our fingers brushed briefly. He looked up, making direct eye contact for the first time. "Thank you, Allison," he said. I froze. I wasn't wearing a name tag. Company policy had changed after a customer had stalked one of our employees at another location. None of us wore name tags anymore. "You're welcome," I managed to say, watching as he walked to his usual booth. During my break, I mentioned it to Jake. "Maybe he heard someone call you by name?" Jake suggested, scrolling through his phone. "Maybe," I agreed, but the unease lingered. I glanced over at the regular. He was methodically dipping fries into his frosty, one by one. He caught me looking and smiled. Not a friendly smile. More like acknowledgement. 2 days later, I was closing again. The regular arrived at his usual time. Same order, same booth. But this time, he left something behind when he finished. A napkin with writing on it. "Your apartment building needs better security cameras. The one in the parking garage hasn't worked in months." My stomach dropped. I lived in a small apartment complex about 15 minutes from work. There was indeed a broken security camera in the parking garage that management had been promising to fix. I showed the napkin to my manager, Mike. He frowned, looked through the windows to the parking lot, but the regular was long gone. "I'm calling the police," Mike said. Officer Reeves arrived 30 minutes later. She took my statement, documented the napkin, and asked if I had noticed anyone following me recently. I hadn't, and that somehow made it worse. This man knew where I lived, and I hadn't even noticed him watching me. "We'll increase patrols in your area," Officer Reeves assured me. "And I suggest you stay with someone else for a few days." I called my sister, who lived across town. She came to pick me up after my shift ended. For the next week, I switched to morning shifts. No sign of the regular during daylight hours. I started to relax slightly. My sister's couch wasn't comfortable, but it felt safer than my apartment. Then the email arrived. From an address I didn't recognize, regular_customer@protonmail.com. "Allison, I miss seeing you at night. Your sister's apartment on Maple Street isn't as convenient for our conversations. I'll wait until you come back to work evenings. We have so much to discuss." I've been watching you for months now. I know your habits better than you do. For instance, you always check your phone before getting out of your car. You always lock your door twice. You sleep on your right side. Your bedroom curtains don't close all the way on the left side. I vomited immediately after reading it. My hands shook as I called Officer Reeves. The police took it seriously this time. They traced the Proton Mail account, but it led nowhere. Created through VPN, accessed through public Wi-Fi. They installed a patrol car outside my sister's apartment, and advised me to take a leave of absence from work. Mike was understanding. "Take all the time you need," he said. "We've advised all the staff to be on the lookout for this guy." 3 weeks passed. No sightings of the regular at Wendy's, according to my coworkers. No more emails. The police patrols became less frequent. I was starting to believe it might be over. I returned to my apartment, though I'd installed new locks, security cameras, and a doorbell camera. My sister had helped me put up blackout curtains that sealed completely. The first night back in my own bed, I slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, I woke to a notification on my phone. Someone had left a package at my door during the night. Through the doorbell camera, I could see it was a Wendy's bag. I called the police immediately. They arrived within minutes, treating the paper bag like a potential bomb. When they carefully opened it, they found a Dave's double, no pickles, with a note. "Welcome home, Allison. I've missed our routine." The burger was still warm. Officer Reeves ordered an immediate search of the building and surrounding area. Nothing. The security footage showed a hooded figure placing the bag at 4:37 a.m., face carefully angled away from any cameras. "He knows where the cameras are," Officer Reeves said grimly. "This isn't random. He's been planning this." I packed a bag and went back to my sister's that afternoon. The police suggested I might want to relocate temporarily, maybe even change jobs. I resisted at first. Why should I upend my life because of some creep? But after the burger incident, I agreed to stay with my cousin in another state for a while. I gave my 2 weeks' notice at Wendy's. Mike suggested I take paid leave instead, but I needed a clean break. On my last day, I worked the morning shift. Everything was normal until I went to the break room to collect my things. There, pinned to the employee bulletin board, was a note that hadn't been there earlier. "Changing jobs won't help, Allison. Indianapolis is only a 3-hour drive. Your cousin's house on Elmwood has such a nice backyard. See you soon." I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. My coworker Tanya rushed in. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I pointed at the bulletin board, but there was nothing there. No note. Nothing. There was a note, I insisted, searching the floor, the trash can. It was right there. Security footage showed no one entering the break room between my shifts except other employees. No one approached the bulletin board. I began to doubt myself. Had I imagined it? My cousin picked me up that evening. As we drove out of town, I kept checking the rearview mirror, certain we were being followed. My cousin noticed. "Nobody's following us, Ollie," she assured me. "And even if they tried, Doug installed a new security system last month. Nobody gets near our house without us knowing." I wanted to believe her. Indianapolis was supposed to be my fresh start. I found a job at a local coffee shop, kept a low profile, and tried to move on with my life. No one knew about my past except my cousin and her husband. For 2 months, everything was peaceful. No sightings, no messages, no warm burgers delivered in the night. The police back home eventually closed the case as inactive. Officer Reeves called to let me know they hadn't identified the regular, but there had been no further incidents involving employees at that Wendy's location. I started to sleep through the night again. I made a few friends. I even downloaded a dating app, though I hadn't worked up the courage to meet anyone yet. Then one night, scrolling through potential matches, I froze. There he was. The regular. Same thinning brown hair, same neutral expression. His profile said his name was David, 46, living in Indianapolis. His bio, I enjoy consistent routines and getting to know people deeply. I deleted the app immediately, hands trembling so badly I could barely operate my phone. I showed my cousin, who insisted we call the local police. The Indianapolis police were skeptical. Dating apps use location services, the officer explained. If this person is really stalking you, he wouldn't advertise his presence this way. They took a report but made it clear this wasn't a priority. After all, the man hadn't actually done anything illegal in their jurisdiction. That night I barely slept. Every creak of the house, every passing car had me bolting upright. Around 3 a.m., exhausted but wired, I went downstairs for some water. The kitchen light was already on. On the counter was a Wendy's bag, steam still rising from it. Next to it sat my cousin's husband, Doug. "You're up late," he said casually. I stared at the bag, then at him. "Where did that come from?" "I got hungry." He shrugged. "There's a 24-hour drive-through about 20 minutes from here." I took a step back. What did you order?" His eyes never left mine. "Dave's Double. No pickles." My blood turned to ice. It couldn't be. Doug was family. Well, family by marriage. I'd known him for years. But looking at him now, in the harsh kitchen light, I realized I'd never really looked at him closely before. The thinning hair. The average build. The button-down shirts. "How long?" I whispered. "Since the day you started working there," he replied calmly. "I was so excited when Melissa mentioned her cousin had gotten a job at that Wendy's. I'd been eating there for years, but suddenly it had new meaning." "But you live here. You've always lived here." Doug smiled. "I travel for work, remember? Indianapolis to your town is an easy drive. Twice a week every week. You never noticed me until I wanted you to." I backed toward the door. "Does Melissa know?" "Know what?" "That I care enough to watch over you? That I've been protecting you? The world is full of dangerous people, Allison. I keep them away." My cousin was upstairs, sleeping. My phone was in my room. I had no way to call for help. "This isn't protection, Doug. This is stalking. This is terrorizing me." His expression darkened. "I've never hurt you. I never would. I just want to be part of your life. Why did you run away? We had a connection." I heard footsteps on the stairs. Melissa appeared in the doorway, bleary-eyed. "What's going on?" "It's the middle of the night." Doug's demeanor changed instantly. "Just getting a late-night snack, honey." Allison couldn't sleep either. I looked at my cousin, silently pleading. Would she believe me? Would she see what was happening? "Doug," I said carefully, "tell Melissa what you just told me. About watching me. About following me from our hometown." Melissa frowned. "What?" Doug laughed. "I think you were having a bad dream, Allison. I've been here all night. I've never even been to your Wendy's." "The burger," I pointed. "Dave's Double, no pickles. That's what the stalker always ordered." Melissa walked to the counter and opened the bag. "It's a Baconator, Ollie. Doug always gets Baconators." I stared at the unwrapped burger. She was right. It wasn't a Dave's Double at all. "But you said—" I began. Doug looked concerned. "I didn't say anything about a Dave's Double. Are you feeling okay?" The room seemed to tilt. Had I imagined the entire conversation? Was I losing my mind? "I think you should see someone, Ollie," Melissa said gently. "You've been through a traumatic experience. Maybe you're having some kind of PTSD." I let them guide me back to my room. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I packed my things and called a rideshare, leaving before they woke up. That was 3 months ago. I've moved again, to a city I've never mentioned to anyone in my family. I've changed my name, my appearance, my phone number, my email, everything. I work at a small local restaurant now, not a chain. I pay for everything in cash. I have no social media presence. Sometimes I wonder if Doug was really the regular. Sometimes I wonder if there ever was a regular at all, or if I created him in my mind somehow. The police never found any evidence beyond the napkin and the email, both of which could have been from anyone. Yesterday, I was closing up the restaurant when I noticed someone sitting in the corner booth facing the door. For a moment, my heart stopped. But it was just a young woman working on her laptop. As I wiped down nearby tables, I found myself checking the time. 10:43 p.m. The door chimed as a new customer walked in. Male, mid-40s, average height, thinning brown hair. "I'm sorry," I called out, my voice steadier than I expected. "We're closed." He looked up, smiled politely. "No problem. I'll come back tomorrow." As he turned to leave, I noticed what he was wearing. Khakis and a blue button-down shirt. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it wasn't Doug. Maybe the regular never existed. Or maybe he's still out there, watching, waiting for me to establish a new routine. Every night, I push my dresser in front of my door. I change my route to work regularly. I vary my schedule. I trust no one. Because the most terrifying thing isn't that someone might be watching me. It's that I'll never know for sure if they are. "Tim's been here longer than the building," my manager said during orientation, nodding toward a gaunt man meticulously arranging fry baskets. 7 days a week, never misses a shift. It was my first day at Wendy's, a temporary gig to make rent while finishing my degree. Tim didn't acknowledge the comment, just continued his precise movements with the same blank expression. "Does he ever take vacation?" I asked while folding uniform shirts in the break room. My manager, Diane, laughed with an edge. "Tim doesn't leave. Ever." She lowered her voice. "Between us, I think he actually lives here. He's always first to arrive, last to leave. I've driven by at 3 a.m. and seen lights on in the office." I smiled politely, assuming it was some initiation joke. Every workplace had its characters. My first few shifts were uneventful. Tim worked silently alongside us, executing tasks with robotic precision. He manned the grill exclusively. No one else touched it. The other employees treated this as gospel. It wasn't until my first closing shift that things felt off. "You'll be with Tim tonight," Diane said, already pulling on her jacket. "He'll show you closing procedures." "Just us?" The restaurant seemed too large for just 2 people to close. "Tim can do it alone, but corporate requires 2 staff present. You're mostly there as a technicality." She patted my shoulder. "Don't worry. He knows what he's doing." The dinner rush faded, leaving us in artificial quiet broken only by the hum of refrigerators and the sizzle of the grill Tim refused to shut down. "We can turn that off now," I suggested at 10 p.m., when we'd had no customers for half an hour. Tim looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. His eyes were pale blue, almost colorless in the fluorescent light. "No," he said softly. "Just that." Then returned to wiping already gleaming counters. Later, I found Tim crouched beside the grill, whispering to it. Not cleaning it. Whispering. His lips moved rapidly, forming words I couldn't make out. "Tim?" He stood abruptly, face smoothly transitioning to his standard blank expression. "Time to shut off the lights," he said, voice flat. "And the grill?" I pressed. He stared at me, unblinking. "I'll finish up. You can go." Something in his tone made it clear this wasn't a suggestion. "He specifically requested you for closing shifts this week," Diane told me the next day. "That's unusual. He usually prefers closing alone." That night, Tim was waiting when I arrived. "You're 2 minutes late," he said by way of greeting. The hours crawled. Few customers came in, and those who did seemed to make Tim anxious. He'd watch them intently, only relaxing when they left. I was mopping near the bathrooms when I noticed the manager's office door ajar. Inside was what looked like a makeshift bed, a thin mattress hidden behind filing cabinets, a neatly folded blanket, a small pillow. Someone cleared their throat behind me. I jumped. Tim stood there, head tilted slightly. "That area's not your responsibility. Do you actually live here, Tim?" His expression didn't change. "This is my home," he said simply. I've been here for 17 years, 3 months, and 14 days. Wendy's is my home. I take care of it. It takes care of me. Does Diane know? Everyone knows. No one says it. His voice remained eerily calm. The district manager visits every third Tuesday. I sleep in my car those nights. Your secret's safe with me, I assured him. His face twitched in what might have been a smile. I know. That's why I requested you for closing. On Friday, a thunderstorm knocked out power. Emergency lights cast long shadows as we ushered the last customers out. District policy says we close during outages, I said. Tim stood rigid by the darkened grill, hands clenching and unclenching. No. We wait. Tim, we can't serve food without power. We wait, he repeated, voice rising. The power always comes back. I texted Diane, who responded immediately, just go home. Let Tim handle it. Don't argue with him about closing. I'm heading out, I announced, grabbing my bag. Tim's breathing had become audible, rapid and shallow. You can't leave me alone with it. With what? The sound. When the machines stop. It gets so loud. I listened. Beyond the rain and thunder, the restaurant was silent. No refrigerators humming, no fryers bubbling, no grill sizzling. I don't hear anything, I said carefully. Tim pressed his palms against his ears. It's always there. Under everything. The sound. That's why I need the machines. They keep it quiet. What sound, Tim? The digging, he whispered. Under the foundation. It's been trying to get in for years. The machines keep it confused, but when they stop. He glanced frantically around. It knows where I am. Tim blocked the door. No one leaves during an outage. Not safe. His eyes darted to the floor. It's getting closer. Can't you feel it? I stepped back. Tim, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. But in here is safer than out there. When the digging stops, that's when it's found a way in. He looked at me imploringly. 17 years I've kept it away. Don't make me face it alone. My phone buzzed with a text from Diane. Power company says minimum 3 hours for restoration. Get out of there if you haven't already. Tim gets weird during outages. I locked myself in the bathroom and called Diane. Tim's acting strange. Something about digging sounds under the building? Diane sighed heavily. Tim has severe schizophrenia. Before Wendy's, he was institutionalized for years. This job and the manager's office as living quarters were part of a supported work program. The routine and constant background noise helped manage his symptoms. Why wasn't I told this? Corporate liability concerns. The important thing is not to challenge his delusions. Tell him Dr. Morrow said it's time for his counting exercises. His red notebook has grounding techniques. A loud thump against the bathroom door made me jump. The digging stopped. Tim called, voice tight with panic. It's here now. Inside the walls? I opened the door to find Tim pressed against the opposite wall, eyes fixed on the floor tiles. Can you see them moving? Breathing up and down? Tim, I think Dr. Morrow would want you to do your counting exercises. Where's your red notebook? His focus snapped to me with sudden clarity. Dr. Morrow. Yes. Notebook. He retrieved a worn spiral notebook and began reading aloud, counting objects, naming colors, reciting memorized passages. Gradually, his breathing slowed. Episode, he said quietly after 20 minutes. Bad one. Sorry. It's okay. Does this happen often? Only when it's too quiet. The machines keep me anchored in reality. That's why I stay. What did you see? When you thought something was digging? Tim studied me. My mind creates threats that aren't there. The digging is a persistent auditory hallucination tied to my fear of being found. Found by what? A small, sad smile. My mind never fills in that detail. Just the certainty that something is coming, has always been coming. Logic says nothing is under the building. Experience says nothing has emerged in 17 years. But in the quiet moments, The fear feels real, even when I know the threat isn't. The lights suddenly came on, machinery humming back to life. Tim's entire body relaxed at the familiar sounds. 3 weeks passed. Tim and I fell into a comfortable closing routine. Then came the notice: corporate renovation plans. The store would close for 3 weeks. They're gutting the kitchen, Diane explained. New floor, new equipment, updated office space. Tim sat perfectly still, knuckles white where he gripped his notebook. Later, I found him staring at the grill. 17 years, he said quietly. Never closed. Not once. It's just 3 weeks. Maybe you could stay with someone? He looked at me as if I'd suggested he fly to Mars. This is my home. You don't understand. The renovations. They'll dig up the floor. Break through the foundation. What's down there, Tim? His eyes met mine, utterly serious. The reason I stay. The reason I can never leave. What they buried before they built this place. That night, I searched online for information about our Wendy's location. The building was 30 years old, county records showed it had been a vacant lot for decades. Nothing unusual in its history. I should have been relieved. Instead, I wondered, why was Tim so convinced something was beneath the building? What had kept him anchored to this location for 17 years? The night before renovations, I was scheduled for the final closing shift with Tim. The restaurant felt hollow already, half the equipment removed. Last night, I said, Diane mentioned they found you temporary housing. Tim was wiping down the grill. I'm not leaving. Construction starts at 8 a.m. He looked up, expression serene in a way that sent warning signals through me. I need to show you something. Then you'll understand why I can't leave. I followed him to the walk-in freezer. Tim directed his flashlight at the floor in the back corner. There, barely visible, was a seam in the concrete that didn't match the rest of the pattern. He knelt and pulled at the edge of a rubber floor mat. Beneath it was a small metal ring. My heart pounded. Tim, what is this? The reason for the voices. The reason for everything. He looked up, eyes clear and focused. I'm not delusional about this part. See for yourself. Against my better judgment, I helped him pull. The metal ring was attached to a trapdoor. It swung open, revealing concrete stairs descending into darkness. Cold air drifted up, carrying a musty, metallic smell. What the hell? This isn't on any building plan. No, Tim agreed. It wouldn't be. What's down there? Tim's flashlight illuminated only the first few stairs before darkness swallowed the light. The thing that speaks to me. The thing everyone pretends isn't real. I stepped back. We should call someone. They know. Diane knows. The district manager knows. Why do you think they let me stay all these years? Keep the grill running, keep the machines humming, keep it distracted. Keep what distracted? Tim directed the flashlight beam into my eyes, temporarily blinding me. I've done my part. 17 years. Now it's someone else's turn to listen. I felt his hand on my back, a firm push. I grabbed the freezer door frame, but my fingers slipped on the frosty metal. I fell backwards down the first few stairs. Above, Tim stood silhouetted in the freezer light. I'm sorry, he said, sounding genuinely remorseful. But they're digging up the foundation tomorrow. Someone needs to stay. Someone needs to listen. It can't be me anymore. The trapdoor swung closed with a soft click, plunging me into absolute darkness. I pounded on the underside. Tim! Let me out! No response. Just silence, heavy and complete. Then, from somewhere below, deeper in the darkness, came a sound. Soft at first, then growing clearer. The unmistakable rhythm of digging. But not coming from beneath the foundation. The sound was coming toward me. Getting closer with each scrape, each thud. And suddenly, I understood why Tim never left. Why he needed the constant noise of machinery. Why he feared the silence. In the darkness, something was climbing the stairs. I could hear it breathing. I'd been working the overnight drive-thru at Wendy's for just 3 weeks when I first noticed her. A woman sitting alone in the corner booth nearest the window. At first, I didn't think much of it. Our location was one of the few 24-hour fast food places in town, and we'd get all types during the graveyard shift. College students cramming for exams, third-shift workers on their lunch breaks, the occasional drunk who'd wandered in looking for greasy sustenance. But something about this woman stood out. She ordered nothing. Just sat there, perfectly still, staring out the window into the empty parking lot. Hours would pass, and she wouldn't move. Not to use the bathroom. Not to check her phone. Nothing. "Hey, Mike," I said to my shift supervisor around 3 a.m. during my first encounter with her. "What's the policy on people who don't order anything?" Mike glanced up from restocking the fry station and followed my gaze to the woman. He shrugged. "As long as they're not bothering anyone or sleeping, corporate says we leave them be. Especially when it's cold out. She's been there for 4 hours." Mike barely looked up. "Some people have nowhere else to go." It seemed reasonable enough. But when I returned for my next overnight shift 2 days later, she was there again. Same booth. Same position. Same vacant stare out the window. By week 3, I knew her schedule. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Always arriving at precisely 11:43 p.m., always leaving at exactly 5:17 a.m. She'd walk in, sit down, and remain motionless for 5.5 hours, then leave without a word. "That's Nightshade," Lori, our other overnight regular employee, told me when I finally asked about her. The nickname seemed fitting somehow. There was something toxic about the woman's stillness. "Is she homeless?" I asked. Lori shook her head. "Don't think so. Her clothes are always clean. Different outfits, but always that same gray coat." She lowered her voice. "Mike says she's been coming for years. Always the same routine. Has anyone ever talked to her? Carlos tried once, back when he still worked here. Asked if she wanted anything. She just stared at him until he walked away." Lori shivered slightly. "I avoid that section when she's here." I studied the woman from behind the counter. Mid-40s, perhaps. Brown hair pulled back in a tight bun. Pale face, almost gaunt. She wore no makeup, no jewelry. Nothing distinctive except that gray wool coat she never removed, even in the overheated restaurant. "Doesn't it seem weird?" I pressed. "Just sitting there, staring out a window all night?" "Honey, this is the overnight shift at Wendy's," Lori replied with a tired smile. "Weird is our baseline." 2 months into the job, on a particularly slow Thursday night in February, I decided to approach her. Maybe she was lonely. Maybe she needed help but couldn't ask for it. Or maybe I was just bored and curious. I made a fresh pot of coffee and filled 2 cups. Mike was on his break, and Lori was cleaning the bathrooms. No one to stop me from this small act of rebellion. "Brought you some coffee," I said, setting 1 cup on her table. "It's cold tonight." Up close, I noticed details I'd missed from across the restaurant. Her skin wasn't just pale, it had an almost translucent quality. The veins in her temples were clearly visible. Her eyes, fixed on the window, were such a light blue they appeared almost colorless in the fluorescent lighting. She didn't respond to my presence, didn't look at the coffee. Just kept staring out the window. "Is there something out there?" I asked, turning to follow her gaze. The parking lot was empty except for the employees' cars and a single streetlight that had been flickering all night. Beyond that, just darkness and the occasional passing headlights on the main road. "I'm Rachel," I said, turning back to her. "I've seen you here a lot and thought." "Booth 7, she interrupted, her voice soft but clear. Her eyes never left the window. "I'm sorry?" "This is booth 7, she repeated. "Always booth 7. It has the right angle." "The right angle for what?" She finally turned to look at me. The movement was so sudden I almost stepped back. Her eyes locked with mine, and I felt a chill run through me that had nothing to do with the February cold. Foreseeing them when they arrive. I glanced out the window again, seeing nothing. "Who's arriving?" She returned her gaze to the window, the brief moment of connection broken. No one if I'm watching. A weird feeling settled in my stomach. I told myself she was probably just mentally ill. The overnight shift attracted people with nowhere else to go. People's society had failed. I shouldn't judge. Well, enjoy the coffee, I said, retreating to the safety of the counter. When I looked back a few minutes later, the coffee cup remained untouched. The woman, Nightshade, continued her vigil at the window. Later, when I was wiping down the tables after she'd left, I noticed something odd. The window beside booth 7 was completely clean. No fingerprints, no smudges, not even the usual layer of dust that accumulated overnight. It was as if someone had meticulously cleaned just that one small section of glass. Every other window in the restaurant showed the normal signs of daily use. She cleaned the window, I told Mike the next morning as we prepared for the shift change. Who did? The woman in booth 7. Nightshade, or whatever her name is. Mike frowned. What are you talking about? We clean the windows on Sunday mornings. No, just her window. Just booth 7. It's spotless. He shrugged, unconcerned. Maybe she's got OCD or something. As long as she's not causing problems, leave her be. That's the policy. But my curiosity had been piqued. The following Thursday, I volunteered to take out the trash shortly after midnight, timing it so I could check the parking lot from the outside. I half expected to see something mysterious in that corner of the lot, something visible only from booth 7. There was nothing. Just asphalt, faded yellow parking lines, and the glow of the restaurant's interior reflecting on the dark surface. When I came back inside, Nightshade's eyes followed me. Not overtly, she maintained her position facing the window, but I could feel her watching my movements in the reflection of the glass. Who are you looking for? I asked when I approached booth 7 again, bolder this time. I'm not looking for, she replied in that same soft voice. I'm looking away. From what? She didn't answer. But that night, for the first time, she touched her coffee cup, rotating it precisely 45 degrees counterclockwise before resuming her stillness. I took that as progress. By March, I'd developed a strange routine with Nightshade. Every Thursday night, I'd bring her coffee. She'd never drink it, but she'd acknowledge it in some small way, rotating the cup, moving it an inch to the left, once even lifting it slightly before setting it back down. I learned nothing more about her. She answered direct questions with cryptic statements, or not at all. But I felt a growing connection to this strange woman and her nightly vigil. Then, on the first Thursday in April, she wasn't there. I noticed immediately. Booth 7, usually occupied by 11:43 p.m. precisely, remained empty as midnight came and went. By 1 a.m., I felt an inexplicable sense of dread. Nightshade's not here, I told Lori as we restocked napkins. Who? The woman in booth 7. The one who stares out the window all night. Lori looked confused. I don't know who you're talking about, Rachel. I stared at her. The woman who comes in 3 nights a week? Has been for years? You literally told me her nickname. Honey, are you feeling okay? We don't have any regular who just sits and stares out windows. A cold feeling washed over me. Was Lori messing with me? Or had I somehow imagined my interactions with Nightshade? Mike, I called to our supervisor. The woman who sits in booth 7 on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. She's not here tonight. Mike glanced up from the schedule he was working on. What woman? You know who I'm talking about. The one who never orders anything. You said corporate policy is to leave her alone as long as she's not bothering anyone. Mike's expression shifted from confusion to concern. Rachel, there's no such person. No one sits in our restaurant for hours without ordering. I felt dizzy suddenly. Was I losing my mind? Had I hallucinated a woman for 2 months straight? But I've talked to her, I insisted. Multiple times. Both of you have mentioned her before. Mike and Lori exchanged worried glances. Maybe you should take a break, Mike suggested gently. The overnight shift can mess with your head sometimes. I've seen it happen. I retreated to the break room, trying to make sense of what was happening. Had I been working too many nights? Was I suffering from some kind of sleep-deprived delusion? But no, I was certain Nightshade was real. I'd brought her coffee. I'd spoken to her. I'd seen her rotate that cup. When my break ended, I returned to the front to find Mike and Lori whispering together. They stopped abruptly when they saw me. "Listen," Mike said, his tone careful. "Why don't you take tomorrow night off? Paid. Get some rest." I nodded numbly, not wanting to argue. Maybe I did need sleep. That night after my shift, I couldn't rest. Something felt wrong, not just the gaslighting from my coworkers, but the absence of Nightshade herself. I found myself driving back to Wendy's around 4 a.m., parking across the street to watch Booth 7 from the outside. The restaurant was quiet, just the usual overnight glow of fluorescent lights. I could see Mike behind the counter, scrolling on his phone. No customers inside. And then, a movement. A figure in a gray coat, sitting in booth 7. Nightshade. My heart raced. She was there. I hadn't imagined her. I grabbed my phone to take a picture, proof for when Mike and Lori tried to deny her existence again. But when I looked at the screen after taking the photo, the booth appeared empty. I looked up. Nightshade was still there, still staring out the window. I took another picture. Again, the booth showed empty in the image. Cold sweat broke out across my forehead. I took several more photos in rapid succession. All showed an empty booth 7. As I lowered my phone, Nightshade's head turned. Slowly, deliberately, until she was looking directly at my car across the street. Even through the distance and darkness, I felt her colorless eyes lock onto mine. She raised one pale hand and pressed it against the window. I started my car and sped away. I called in sick the next day and the day after that. On the third day, I forced myself to return to work, arriving for my 11 p.m. shift with a sense of dread. Mike looked surprised to see me. "Feeling better?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Good. Oh, by the way, did you clean booth 7 recently? Jackson mentioned it was spotless when he was doing the morning wipe down." My blood ran cold. "No. I haven't touched it." The night proceeded normally until 11:43. I found myself staring at the door, half expecting, half dreading Nightshade's arrival. But she didn't come. At exactly midnight, every light in the restaurant flickered simultaneously. Just once, a brief dimming before returning to normal. "Power surge," Mike commented casually from the grill. I glanced at booth 7. For a fraction of a second, I thought I saw her sitting there, but when I blinked, the booth was empty. By 3 a.m., I had almost convinced myself that I had experienced some kind of breakdown. Too many overnight shifts, too little sunlight, too much isolation, all plausible explanations for hallucinating a woman who didn't exist. Then a customer walked in, an older man in a security guard uniform, likely on his break. "Quiet night," he commented as I took his order. "Yeah," I agreed, grateful for the normalcy of the interaction. "That's why I'm surprised she's not here," he continued, glancing toward the dining area. My hands froze on the register. "Who?" "The woman who always sits by the window." He nodded toward booth 7. "Gray coat. Been coming for years. I work security at the office building down the street, see her every time I come in for my 3 a.m. coffee." Relief flooded through me. "You've seen her too?" He looked at me strangely. "Of course. Everyone has. She's been keeping watch since it happened." "Since what happened?" The security guard's expression darkened. "You don't know? It was all over the news at the time. Must have been, 7 years ago now." I shook my head. He lowered his voice. "Young woman was abducted from that very parking lot. Right outside that window. She was working the overnight shift alone, against company policy, but the other employee had called out sick. Security footage showed a car pulling up at 3:17 a.m. 2 men forced her into the vehicle when she was taking out trash." My mouth went dry. "What happened to her?" They found her body 2 weeks later. He glanced around, then leaned closer. The rumor is that her mother comes to that booth every night to keep watch. Thinks if she'd been watching that night, she could have prevented it. Some kind of vigil. I felt lightheaded. And you see her? This mother? Sure. Gray coat, right? Never orders, just watches. He frowned at my expression. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, I managed to say. Just tired. After he left, I approached Mike, who was refilling the ice machine. Did a woman who worked here get abducted from the parking lot years ago? Mike froze, then slowly turned to face me. Who told you about that? The security guard who just left. He said it happened right outside booth 7. Mike's face had gone pale. We don't talk about that. Corporate policy. So it's true? He hesitated, then nodded once. 7 years ago. Amanda Hale. She was 22. And her mother comes here to keep watch? Mike looked confused. Her mother? Amanda's mom died when she was in high school. There was no family at the funeral except a distant cousin. The cold feeling returned, spreading from my spine to every extremity. Then who's the woman in the gray coat who sits in booth 7? Mike stared at me. Rachel, there is no woman in a gray coat. There never has been. I backed away from him, my mind racing. If Nightshade wasn't Amanda's mother, then who, or what, had I been talking to for 2 months? At that moment, every light in the restaurant flickered again. When they stabilized, I found myself staring at booth 7. It was occupied. Not by Nightshade, but by a young woman in a Wendy's uniform. She sat perfectly still, staring out the window into the dark parking lot. As I watched, frozen in place, she slowly turned her head toward me. Her face was pale, gaunt, with colorless eyes that seemed to look through me rather than at me. Behind me, I heard Mike's sharp intake of breath. He saw her too. The woman, Amanda, raised one pale hand and pointed. Not at us, but at the window. At something in the parking lot. I turned to look. A car had pulled up outside booth 7's window. An old sedan, dark-colored, idling with its headlights off. 2 silhouettes visible in the front seats, watching the restaurant. Watching us. When I turned back, booth 7 was empty again. Mike stood beside me now, his face ashen. Did you see? Yes, I whispered. He moved quickly to the door, locking it with trembling hands. We're closing early. Family emergency. I looked back at the parking lot. The car was still there, still idling. As we watched, it slowly pulled forward until it was directly in front of booth 7's window. The passenger window rolled down. She wasn't keeping watch to prevent anything. I realized aloud, my voice shaking. She was warning us. They're coming back. Mike was already on the phone with 911. I backed away from the windows, unable to tear my eyes from the sedan. In the reflection of the glass, just for a moment, I thought I saw her again, not sitting in booth 7, but standing behind me. Not Nightshade. Not Amanda. Me. In a gray coat I didn't own, with pale skin and colorless eyes, keeping watch at a window for something that had already happened. Or was about to happen again. I only stopped at Wendy's that night because I was starving and it was the only place still open at 11 p.m. in the small town where I'd been forced to stop. My car had been making an ominous grinding noise for the last 20 miles, and when the check engine light finally blinked on, I decided not to risk continuing my journey until morning. The motel I'd checked into was the kind with buzzing fluorescent lights and cigarette burns on the bedspread. No vending machines, not even a coffee maker in the room. So when hunger gnawed at my stomach, I walked a quarter mile to the only lit building on the dreary main street, a Wendy's with a flickering. Open 24 hours. Sighing. The place was empty except for a teenager slouched at a corner table, scrolling through his phone, and a middle-aged man in a rumpled suit hunched over paperwork. Behind the counter stood a single employee, a woman with her hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her skin. Her name tag read, Gloria. Welcome to Wendy's. she said when I approached. Her voice was oddly formal, almost robotic, but I didn't think much of it. Late-night fast food shifts would make anyone a bit mechanical. I ordered a simple combo meal and moved to the side to wait, scrolling through my own phone to check how early the local mechanic opened. When I glanced up, I noticed Gloria staring at me. Not the casual glance of an employee checking if I needed anything, but an intense, unblinking stare. "Everything okay?" I asked. She snapped out of it, blinking rapidly. "Yes. Fine. Your order will be ready in 2 minutes." Her smile appeared suddenly, too wide for her narrow face. While waiting, I watched her prepare my food. There was something unsettling about her movements, too precise, like someone trying very hard to appear normal. She laid each fry in the container individually, arranging them in perfect rows. When she assembled my burger, she aligned each component with methodical care, as if building a tiny architectural model rather than fast food. "Here you go," she said, sliding my tray across the counter. "Enjoy your special order." "Special?" I hadn't ordered anything special. "Every order is special to us," she replied, that too wide smile returning. "Every customer is special." I took my food to a table far from the other 2 customers. The whole interaction left me feeling vaguely disquieted, but I dismissed it as tiredness from the long drive. I bit into my burger, and it tasted normal. Maybe a bit too perfect in its construction, but otherwise just a standard Wendy's burger. I was halfway through my meal when I noticed Gloria had emerged from behind the counter and was wiping down tables, gradually making her way toward me. Nothing unusual about that, except she kept looking up at me between tables, that same intense stare. "Everything tastes all right?" she asked when she reached the table next to mine. "It's fine, thanks," I replied, keeping my eyes on my food. "I made it special for you," she said. "I could tell you needed something special tonight." I looked up, meeting her gaze. Her eyes were a pale, washed-out blue, almost colorless under the fluorescent lights. There was a strange intensity to them, a hunger that had nothing to do with food. "I appreciate that," I said cautiously. "But really, just a regular burger is perfect." "I knew you'd be coming," she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "I prepared for you specially." The skin on the back of my neck prickled. "I'm sorry. I saw your car outside the motel earlier," she said. "The blue sedan with the Pennsylvania plates. I knew you'd come here eventually. Everyone does. There's nowhere else to go." I felt a chill run through me. My car was indeed a blue sedan with Pennsylvania plates, but the motel was a quarter-mile away and not visible from the restaurant. "I'm very observant," she added, misreading my expression. "I notice everything about our special customers." The man in the rumpled suit suddenly stood, gathering his papers. "Night, Gloria," he called, heading for the door. "Good night, Mr. Levin," she replied, her voice switching back to that formal, robotic tone. "See you tomorrow night. Same order as always." The teenager left shortly after, without a word. I was now alone in the restaurant with Gloria. "You're not from around here," she said, sliding into the seat across from me without asking. It wasn't a question. "Just passing through," I replied, trying to keep my voice casual. "Car trouble." "Hanson's Auto?" she asked. When I nodded, she smiled that too wide smile again. "Hank won't be open until 9. You'll be here all night." "At the motel, yes." She leaned forward slightly. "The Pinewood isn't safe, you know." Despite myself, I felt a spike of alarm. "What do you mean?" "The cleaning staff doesn't change the sheets between guests. And the locks don't work properly. Anyone could walk in while you're sleeping." She delivered this information matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. I pushed my tray away, appetite gone. "Well, it's just for one night." Gloria reached across the table suddenly, her cold fingers brushing against my wrist. I jerked back instinctively. "Sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "You have something there." She pointed to a non-existent spot on my wrist. I stood up. I should get back to the motel. Thanks for the food. You haven't finished your special order, she said, her voice dropping lower. I'm full. Thanks again. I turned toward the door. I get off at midnight, she called after me. I could bring you something at the Pinewood. Something better than what you ordered here. I pushed the door open without responding, quickening my pace as I headed back toward the motel. The night air was cold, the street darker than I remembered. I glanced back once to see Gloria watching me through the window, her pale face floating in the fluorescent glow of the restaurant. Back in my room, I double-checked the lock and pushed a chair under the doorknob for good measure, Gloria's words about the locks echoing in my mind. I tried to dismiss the entire interaction as nothing more than an encounter with an odd, socially awkward person, the kind of bizarre experience frequent travelers occasionally have. I was almost asleep when my phone buzzed with a notification. A friend request on Facebook from someone I didn't know. The profile picture was too small to make out clearly, but something about it seemed familiar. I opened it to find Gloria's face staring back at me. Her profile was mostly private, but her cover photos showed the Wendy's where she worked. My hand trembled slightly as I denied the request and blocked the profile. How had she found me? My social media profiles were set to private, and I hadn't mentioned my name during our interaction. A soft knock on my door jolted me fully awake. I froze, listening. Another knock, slightly louder. Delivery, called a familiar voice. Gloria. I remained absolutely silent, heart hammering in my chest. I know you're awake, she continued. I can see your phone screen lighting up the window. Her voice was still pleasant, conversational. I brought you a Frosty. And some information about your car. Hank is my cousin. He already looked at it. I slid out of bed and moved silently to the window, carefully pulling back the curtain just enough to peek out. Gloria stood at my door, still in her Wendy's uniform, holding what indeed looked like a Frosty cup. How did you know which room I was in? I called through the door, making no move to open it. Like I said, I'm observant. Room 16, blue sedan with Pennsylvania plates, out-of-town business traveler, male, early 30s, wedding ring tan line but no ring, so they're divorced or cheating. Staying one night because of car trouble. She recited these details in the same tone someone might use to list sandwich ingredients. A cold dread washed over me. I had removed my wedding ring 6 months ago after signing the divorce papers, but the tan line had indeed lingered. The fact that she had noticed such a detail during our brief interaction was deeply unsettling. Thanks for the Frosty, but I'm really tired. And I'm not sure how you found my room, but I'd appreciate it if you left. Don't you want to know about your car? She asked. It's not the engine. It's your brake lines. They've been cut. My blood ran cold. What did you say? Your brake lines. There was a pause. Someone cut them. That's why you had to stop here. It wasn't an accident. That's not funny, I said, moving away from the door. Please leave before I call the front desk. She laughed softly. Mr. Patel at the front desk went home at 10. There's no one there until 6 tomorrow. We're all alone on this side of the motel. I pulled out my phone, finger hovering over the emergency call button. I'm trying to help you. Gloria continued. Don't you want to know who cut your brake lines? Don't you want to know why they followed you from Pennsylvania? Why they want you to never make it to your meeting in Denver? My fingers froze over the screen. I had told no one about my destination. My business meeting in Denver was confidential, a potential whistleblower situation involving the pharmaceutical company where I'd worked until my recent termination. How do you know about Denver? I asked, my mouth dry. The same way I know about the flash drive in your laptop bag, she replied. The same way I know that Weston Pharmaceuticals has a $2 million bounty on that drive. The same way I know that the man in the room next to yours isn't really asleep. As if on cue, I heard movement from the room adjoining mine. Footsteps, a creak of weight shifting. He checked in an hour after you did. Gloria continued. Paid cash. Asked which room you were in, claimed to be your brother who wanted to surprise you. Mr. Patel told him, of course. $15 was all it took. My hands were shaking now. Who are you? I managed to ask. Open the door and I'll tell you everything. We don't have much time. Why should I trust you? Because I'm not the one who put ipecac in your Wendy's burger, she said. But I'm the one with the key to the staff exit behind the restaurant, where my car is parked. I can get you to Denver by morning. As if to punctuate her statement, I felt a sudden churning in my stomach, a wave of nausea rising rapidly. The burger. My knees buckled as the first heave hit me, sending me stumbling toward the bathroom. Through the haze of sudden illness, I heard a key card in my door lock. The chair holding it shut skidded across the thin carpet as the door was forced open. Gloria slipped inside, locking the door behind her. We need to go now, she hissed, pulling me up from the bathroom floor. He'll hear you being sick and know it's time. The ipecac works fast. You said you didn't. I couldn't finish the sentence before another wave of nausea hit. I didn't put it in your food, she said, pulling my arm over her shoulders to support my weight. The night manager did. He works for them too. She moved to the window, peering out. Your car is being watched. We'll go out the bathroom window. It's small, but we'll manage. Why are you helping me? I gasped between heaves. Gloria's face changed then, the mask of strange intensity dropping away to reveal something harder, more focused. Because Weston Pharmaceuticals killed my sister 3 years ago with that contaminated drug your flash drive has the data on. And I've been waiting for someone like you to finally come forward. As she helped me toward the bathroom, I heard the distinct sound of the room next door opening. Footsteps in the walkway outside. Do exactly as I say, Gloria whispered, her voice now completely different, calm, authoritative. And we might both survive until morning. I had no choice but to trust the strange woman from Wendy's as she eased open the small bathroom window. Outside, the night was pitch black, the only light coming from the distant glow of the restaurant where, just an hour earlier, I'd found myself face to face with a woman I'd assumed was simply a peculiar fast food worker. As I squeezed through the tight opening, hearing the unmistakable sound of my motel room door being tested, I realized I'd never been more terrified in my life. Not of Gloria and her unsettling intensity, but of how quickly my ordinary existence had dissolved into this nightmare. And the most horrifying part, the cold certainty that nothing about this night was random. Not my car trouble, not my stop in this town, and certainly not my encounter with Gloria. I'd been watched, tracked, and hunted long before I ever set foot in that Wendy's. The only question remaining as we slipped into the darkness behind the motel was whose game I was actually playing, Gloria's, or someone else's entirely. Thanks so much for watching. I can't express enough how much your support means. The likes, the comments, it all really helps the channel grow. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. I always take the time to read them. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on any new videos. See you next time.